Love unites, and selfishness divides. Good afternoon. In our language, in Tagalog, magandang hapon. I tell you that love unites and selfishness divides. Because today we celebrate the solemnity of Corpus et Sanguinis Christi, the body and blood of Christ. You know, my dear friends, the sacrifice of the Mass, why is it that it is called sacrifice? First and foremost, for you, when you are facing the priest, that will be a great sacrifice. Am I right? When you are facing me during the Mass, that will be a great sacrifice for you. And for me, to say in English, also, that will be a great sacrifice for me. No? How to enunciate, how to make my voice loud. It's not easy for me, you know. It's a sacrifice. Why is it called a sacrifice? Because, can you imagine you give your life to be broken for the sake of the many? Is it not a sacrifice when you give yourself for the other, forgetting yourself? That is a great sacrifice, and the world never hates, never loves that. To give ourselves for the other, no. The one who teaches us to give ourselves for the other is no other than Christ, not the world. That is why our world is full of chaos, because almost everyone is very selfish, not to think for the common good. And look at Christ. He gives himself for our sake. This is my body. This is my blood. And the more we eat, the more we become. And you know, my dear friends, the sacrifice of the cross perpetuates the sacrifice of the Mass. Why is it that Christ gives himself for our sake? So that we may live in our life in the world. We may be able, we may have strength, we may have inspiration, we may have so much courage to go on the journey for the place that God has prepared for us. That is why he gives himself for our sake. The sacrifice of the Mass, my dear friends, when you eat the simple bread, that's why transubstantiation, according to St. Thomas Aquinas, he coins that word. Because materials change. When something is changed, it becomes new. Like, for example, today, one of the Filipino priests, because we have our ordination this morning, and they told me, "Father, your hair are all gray." Something in me is changed. That is called, in philosophy, it is called, am I right, Kiarik? Material change. The matter is changed. I'm a material body. And we seldom see, of course, formal change, because everything is composed of matter and form, substance and action, according to the philosophy. According to St. Thomas, when the priest consecrates the very simple body and the very simple wine, it turns out into the body and blood of Christ. And St. Thomas calls it transubstantiation. Transubstantiation. What is being changed is not the matter, because after the consecration, the simple host remains simple host, and the wine remains simple wine. But what is being changed is its form, its substance. It turns into the body and blood of Christ. Is it possible? Yes, very, very possible. Because Christ himself instituted the sacrament of our salvation for us to live. Everything that God is doing is his love, because he wants us to be always in him, to be in communion with him. That is why God himself was not selfish about love, was not selfish about peace, was not selfish about justice. That's why he gives us his very own life. Love unites, and selfishness divides. If God did not give us his Son, we will have no place in heaven, and we will have no life. That's why one of the expressions of God's love to us is his giving of his Son. And the Son gives us not only partially, that's why pouring is very quite different from when you mix something, when you have measures, when you measure something about, like for example, when you make bread, you measure it. You never pour it because it might be different. But look at Christ. He poured himself for us. In today's holy sacrifice of the Mass, we may be able to understand, not by understanding of our mind, but through faith. The moment when we receive the body and blood of Christ, we may be able to realize that it is his love for us, and he wants us to be always with him, in contradiction to our concept that we always preserve to ourselves. But look at Christ. That is why forgiveness, giving of oneself, totally. And we have to ask God's mercy and pardon. The times when we never understand well, when we do not have so much faith on what we receive, on what we eat during the sacrament of the sacrifice of the Mass, we have to ask God's pardon for our offenses to him and for not taking care of his love that unites us all. In Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. I believe in one God, the Father Almighty,